Welcome to this Grammar for IELTS speaking video by Exam Sam. In this video, you'll learn how to raise your IELTS speaking score by using conditional sentences. Here is an overview of the Grammar for IELTS speaking video. In this video, you will see exercises on how to use conditional sentences to raise your IELTS speaking test score. You will learn which conditionals to use and review the grammar for each one. There will then be 10 exercises on using the conditionals. Answers and explanations are provided after each question. Here are the instructions for the Grammar for IELTS speaking video. Sometimes students can't decide which conditional is the best to use in certain situations. Read the following information on conditional sentences. Then try the exercises to learn when to use each type of conditional. Finish each sentence using the 0, first, second, or third conditional as appropriate. Grammar for IELTS speaking, the 0 conditional. The 0 conditional is used to describe facts and generalizations. The 0 conditional is formed with the present simple in both the if clause and the main clause of the sentence. Now let's look at some grammatical examples of the 0 conditional. If I go out in the rain, I take my umbrella. Here we can see go and take are both in the present simple. We can invert the sentence like the one below. I take my umbrella if I go out in the rain. We call this an inverted sentence because the two clauses have simply swapped position in the sentence. Bear in mind that you can also use when instead of if in conditional sentences like this one. When I go out in the rain, I take my umbrella. Again, go and take are in the present simple. And again, you can invert the sentence to make the construction, I take my umbrella when I go out in the rain. Now, let's look at some more rules for the 0 conditional. You need to use the 0 conditional when you want to describe a situation that always has the same outcome or result. And remember, in 0 conditional sentences, we can use the word when instead of if. Now try this example of the 0 conditional to improve your grammar for the IELTS speaking test. Now pause to answer the question. Let's look at the answer. The answer is, when I study for an exam, I get a good score. We are using the 0 conditional in this sentence because we are describing an action that always happens or that always has the same outcome. Notice the verbs study and get, which are both in the present simple tense. Let's go on now to using the first conditional on the IELTS speaking test. The first conditional is used to describe events that could realistically happen in the future, to state plans and intentions, or to make predictions. Now let's look at some examples of the first conditional. To state a plan, I will stay over at her house on Friday if the weather is bad. To state an intention, if I pass my exams, I will go to university. Or to state predictions, if the company does not monitor its budget, it will have financial problems. Now let's look at the grammatical rules for using the first conditional. The first conditional is formed with the present simple in the if clause and will plus the base form of the verb in the main clause of the sentence. Remember that the clauses of conditional sentences can be inverted. This means that the position of the clauses can be swapped. Now try these examples. Please pause to answer the questions. Now let's go to the answers. For the first sentence, we need fail and will attend. You notice in the first sentence, we need to put fail, which is in the present simple tense, because this is in the clause containing if. And then after the comma in the other clause, we need to put will plus the base form, will attend. Now the second sentence is inverted, so we need to put will attend in the first gap and fail in the second gap. Let's go on now to how to use the second conditional to improve your grammar for the IELTS speaking test. The second conditional is used to describe events in the present that are impossible because of present circumstances. The second conditional is also used to describe events in the future that are imaginary or extremely improbable. The second conditional is formed with the past simple in the if clause and would plus the base form in the main clause of the sentence. Now let's look at some examples of the second conditional. If I knew my teacher's email address, I would send her a message. The event of sending an email to the teacher is impossible at the present moment because the student does not have the email address. Okay, let's go to the next screen, and now please pause to try this example. Let's look at the answer. In this second conditional sentence, we need one in the first gap because this is following the word if, and we need to use the past simple for the second conditional. In the second gap, after the comma in the main clause, we need to use would travel. This is would plus the base form. We'll look at the last aspect of grammar for the IELTS speaking test now, and look at the rules for the third conditional. We use the third conditional sentence construction to discuss events from a retrospective perspective, and to describe how events in the past could have had different results. The third conditional is formed with the past perfect in the if clause, and would have plus the past participle in the main clause of the sentence. Now try these examples. Remember, you need the past perfect in one gap and would have plus the past participle in the other gap. Now pause to answer the questions. Let's look at the answers. For the first sentence, we need would have passed in the first gap and had studied, the past perfect, in the second gap, because this gap is after the word if. And again, you'll notice we can invert the sentence like we have on the second one, so we put had studied in the first gap and would have passed in the second gap. Let's go on now to the 10 grammar practice questions for the IELTS speaking test. In each of the following sentences, you will need to determine which words could be used in the gap to make a complete sentence. You will need to decide whether to use the 0, first, second, or third conditional based upon what is stated in the if clause. You need to use some form of the be verb in the gap, plus some additional words. Now pause to answer question 1. Let's look at the answer to question 1. The word tomorrow indicates that we are speaking about the future, so the first conditional is needed in this sentence. The answer is, if I pass my exam tomorrow, I will be so happy. Let's go on now to question 2. you will need to use some form of the be verb in the gap in this sentence. Now pause to answer. Now let's go to the answer to question 2. The word yesterday and the use of the past perfect hadn't missed indicate that we need the third conditional sentence structure. The answer is, if I hadn't missed the bus yesterday, I wouldn't have been late to class. Let's go on now to question 3. Remember to look at the verb tense in the if clause, and then try to determine how you could finish the sentence in the correct conditional structure. Let's go on to the answer to question 3. The use of the past perfect, had not stolen, shows that we are speaking retrospectively about a past event, so we need to use the third conditional sentence structure. If the employee had not stolen the money, she would not have lost her job. Let's go on now to the Grammar for IELTS Speaking Test Conditional Sentence Practice question number 4. Look at the verb tense in the if clause and try to finish the sentence. Now let's go on to the answer to question 4. The present simple tense, reaches, shows that we are talking about a scientific generalization, so we need to use the zero conditional. If water reaches 100 degrees, it boils. Let's go on now to question 5. Please pause to answer the question. Let's go on now to the answer to question 5. The use of the word truly, together with the use of the past simple tense, wanted, indicates that we are speaking about an improbable event, so we need to use the second conditional. If the company truly wanted more staff, it would hire them. Let's go on now to the conditional sentence practice question number 6. Now pause to try to answer the question. Now let's look at the answer. The phrase later this afternoon indicates that we are speaking about the immediate future, so the first conditional is needed in this sentence. If the weather gets bad later this afternoon, I will not go for a walk. Moving on now to question number 7. Please pause to answer. Let's go on now to the answer to question 7. The situation of living on a deserted island is an imaginary one for most people. Accordingly, we need to use the second conditional. The answer is, if I lived on a deserted island, I would miss my family so much. Let's go on now to the IELTS speaking grammar question number 8. Now pause to answer. We'll have a look now at the answer to question 8. The phrase human beings and the use of the present simple, encounter, show that we are speaking about a generalization, so we need the zero conditional. The answer is, when human beings encounter difficulties in life, they often feel discouraged. Let's have a look now at the IELTS speaking grammar question number 9. Please pause to answer. Let's have a look now at the answer to question 9. The situation of winning $1 million is an imaginary one for most people. Accordingly, we need to use the second conditional. The answer is, if I won $1 million, I would buy a huge mansion. Finally, we'll have a look at the IELTS speaking grammar question number 10. Now pause to answer. We'll have a look now at the answer to question 10. The third conditional is needed in this sentence because we are describing a past event. The correct answer is, if the professor hadn't given so much homework for this class, we would have had more time to study for our exams. These free samples are from the book by IELTS Success Associates. The title of the book is IELTS Speaking Test Practice, IELTS Speaking Exam Preparation and Language Practice. You can get the book as a paperback on Amazon or as a PDF download. Please see the links in the description below the video. Please see Exam Sam's other videos in IELTS speaking, listening, reading, writing, and vocabulary. That is the end of the Grammar for IELTS speaking video with conditional sentence practice questions. Thanks so much for joining us, and please subscribe to our channel for more great exam practice videos.